What's going on, everybody? We are live. Sorry, the mail came and I had to go get some more books came in. So let's see what we got. Let's see what came in. Oh wow, 3 books in one. 3 came in. We got 3 here. Let's see what we got. So Void Working came in. Void Working by Dave Smith, Practical Sorcery from Primordial Nothingness. I think this is pretty chaosophic, so check that out. I've been hearing good things about this one, Mojo Working. Get a little deeper into my hoodoo practice, Mojo Working. And The Secret History of Hermes Trismegistus. So these 3 books just came in. Very, very interesting. That I timed it like as soon as I got on. They went that the mailman comes. He's like an hour and some change early. So very interesting. This is the one that I'm really looking forward to because, as you all know, I'm a hermeticist. So this is going to be really, really interesting. So thank you all for joining me this afternoon. In a couple minutes, we should be joined by the Bliss Seeker. I just saw she got on. It just popped up that she got on. So we should be joined by the Bliss Seeker in a couple minutes to do an astrology live stream. This is the first live stream that I've done with an astrologer. For those of you who are familiar with my content, you know that despite being an occultist, the 2 subjects within occultism that I struggle with is astrology and herbalism. Those are the 2 things that I need to do much better on. So we have an astrologer, excuse me, the Bliss Seeker, coming on today at 4 p.m. So she should be, she's on according to TikTok. It popped up saying that I can invite her, but I'll wait until she's ready. She'll probably invite me or something like that. So we're just waiting for her to get ready, and then we'll go ahead and do the dual stream. We'll get that started. All right. There she is. Is she in here? Because if she's in here, I'm gonna tell her let's do a dual stream rather than her just join my stream because that's it. Okay, she's in here. Bliss Seeker, if you don't mind, rather than you like being in my stream, why? There we go. Yep.
I'm doing pretty well. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you. Thank you for asking. We're going to find that out today. Pick book Helena. We're going to find that out in just a few minutes. I'm not entirely sure, but we'll find out in just a few minutes. So welcome. Glad that you agreed to do the live stream. Very, very interested in this one because I know next to nothing outside of planetary days and hours about astrology. So I am interested to have you on here. For my audience, if you guys are not familiar, today we're doing a astrology live stream. We have the Bliss Seeker here with us today. She is a professional astrologer, and she'll be downloading some knowledge on astrology for us. So if you guys have any questions about astrology, feel free to ask them in the chat, and I will get them over to her and hopefully get them answered for you. So Bliss Seeker, if you want to go ahead and just do a bit of an introduction about yourself for my audience, that would be great.
Yeah, cool. So have been studying astrology for about 4.5 years now. Good old deep dive because of COVID times and, and whatnot. I am currently focusing on studying ancient Hellenistic astrology, often referred to as traditional astrology. So it's
Okay.
going back to some of the roots of where some of our modern Western astrology comes from. With that, I focus on the 7 classical planets. There's a few, specific things that we might get into a little bit later that kind of differentiates the ancient Western astrology from modern Western astrology. Um, yeah, that's kind of my background with it, I suppose. I've been offering readings, doing astrology more professionally for less than a year at this point, but it's been pretty good.
Awesome, awesome. Well, I'm glad that you're here. Glad that you agreed to do this. So pick book, Helena. It looks like it's a Western. Someone had a question saying if it's Western or Vedic, but it looks like it's Western. So hopefully that answers your questions. And yes, obey the Supreme. We are humans. We are human beings with all the trappings of being a human. So thank you for telling me that we're humans. Thank you. We are humans. Um, So yeah, did you want to go ahead and get started, or I have some questions if you want to start there?
I think I'd like to start with just my general breakdown of kind of what is astrology and what it isn't. I think that's
Okay.
a really important place to start because there are so many misconceptions right now. I mean, in general, but there's a lot of misconceptions, and that's one of my favorite things to clear up. Um, and that could potentially answer some questions too, I think.
Excellent. Go for it.
So most people understand astrology from the perspective of sun signs, right? Most people, you ask, what's your sign? You know what your sun sign is. That's what that's referring to because that's what you know based on just your birthday, relatively reliably. Not everybody realizes that you actually have a whole chart. You have an entire astrology natal chart that shows the positions of the planets the moment you were born. And I'm sure I'll get into the symbolism of all that later, but just that's one of the big things is that it's not just the sun sign. There's all of the planets and a lot of other layers as well. It is also not it's not a science. A lot of people want to dispute astrology because they claim it's, there's no scientific backing for it. It's not a science, but it's also not inherently spiritual. It's not a religion. A lot of people think it's tied in with religion. It's not. I view it as more of a philosophy. So it's kind of in that gray area. I think it has the potential
Okay.
to be studied as a science. It has the capacity to be used in a spiritual sense, but it is not inherently either one of those. Let's see. I got my notes for my points I want to touch on with all this. One
Awesome.
of the other big things that's a misconception to touch on is that people think that all astrologers view it as the planets causing things to happen. And this has been a widely debated topic for as long as we have record of astrology being studied, where some
I'm sure.
people will hold on to that. They think that there's, the planets are causing things due to various mechanism. We don't have proof of any mechanism right now. I am of the belief that it is correlation. It's
Yeah.
more as above, so below than it is a causal mechanism at play. I'm open to the idea of there being one. We just don't know what it is yet.
So correlation, not causation, audience. Correlation, not causation.
Yes.
Excellent. You did mention something that I have a bit of a question about. So you said that it's not a science, but it's not fully spiritual, and it has nothing to do with religion. So how do you feel about people who try to use like astrotheology to like try to explain the Bible or the Quran or something like that? They try to use, astrological timing and placements to sort of explain some of the miracles or the events of the Bible and other um, uh, sacred texts.
Right. I'm not familiar with all of that. I
Okay.
am familiar with the three wise men in the Bible being magi, which at that time they would have been astrologers.
Mhm.
So I think a lot of that is using how to phrase this. It's being used as a tool in that context rather than being a part of that context, if that makes sense. It is not
Okay.
it's not part of the religion itself. And granted, I'm sure there's other connections to this that I don't fully know. Um, but it is a tool in that application,
Okay. All right. Interesting. So
would be how
it
I
can
feel.
be used to sort of decipher certain things, but it shouldn't be it shouldn't be thought of as maybe like the be all end all, I guess is what you're trying to say.
It's not in itself a religious or spiritual thing. It can be
Okay.
used as a tool in those contexts, but that's not, yeah, not its inherent thing.
Awesome. All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Please continue.
Let's see. The other big thing that I like to mention is that a lot of people will use astrology as a way to place blame both for like themselves, like they think, "Oh, I'm a bad person because of this astrology
Yeah,
placement." Like that is not a healthy way to use astrology. And one of my biggest pet peeves is people trying to just pass blame on, I'm like this just because of my chart. Like, you are like that because you have chosen to be like that,
yeah,
basically, is how I view that. You have the archetypal base from your chart and you have chosen to take that in a certain direction. And people often extend that to other people where they, say, "Oh, I can't date a Gemini. I will never date Geminis because they're all terrible." And that's the combination of making those judgments loosely based on often a misunderstanding of
yeah,
astrology and also thinking that it's just the sun sign. So like just to put that point out there as well, this is not it's not categorizing people. It's not putting people in a box. It's not putting yourself in a box. It's not a way to place blame anywhere. It's
yes.
just an archetypal base for understanding.
Yeah, thank you for that because I see that a lot in like the real world. There have been times when I've been asked by women that I'm interested in, oh, well, what's your sign and things like that. And it's like that doesn't that doesn't really have anything to do with how our relationship, if we end up in one, is going to play out. So thank you for saying that.
Exactly.
Um,
Yeah.
King Leo King Leo Yo has a question. Where did astrology come from?
Great question. That's one of my favorite topics. So there are there's different forms of astrology all over the world. So when you talk about astrology in a broad scope, everywhere. It comes from everywhere. Every
Hmm.
society around the world has always been looking to the stars for guidance. That's
Yes.
just part of human nature for some reason. The version of astrology that I study has its roots in ancient Babylon and Mesopotamia. So it originated there, moved into Egypt and Greece, and that's kind of where you get the Hellenistic approach for astrology that is what I currently study. You get that Egyptian, Greco-Roman kind of blend with a little bit of Indian and Persian influence as well. It's really interesting to dig into actually the history of Western astrology.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I hope that answers your question. Uh, I'm not King Leo Yo. I don't know if that's right. But yes, please go ahead and continue.
All right, so I think that's my biggest points when it comes to like the stereotypes and the misconceptions about astrology. Getting more
Okay.
into what it actually is.
Yes, I
Um,
have questions about that. So please go ahead.
yeah, so I do view it as more of a philosophy, as more of a, correlation as above, so below type thing. Oftentimes I like to stick with correlation when I'm like explaining it in my lives that I tend to get because I get the people that are like, it's a pseudoscience and whatnot. But since your audience is a little bit more familiar with, I'm sure, the idea of as above, so below and things like that, that's more of what it is to me. Um, and I think it's really valuable as a tool for understanding the self and other people and the world around you. Like even just your individual chart can show you things about people in your life. There's so many things that you can get from just your chart. Um, so yeah, it's a great tool for that. It's highly nuanced, and the more you learn, the more complicated it gets.
Okay.
You start with all of the planets, and they each have their own significations, their own topics, themes, ideas. They're parts of yourself.
Yeah.
Just starting with that starts to complicate things, right? And bring in more details that not everybody knows is there.
Yeah.
Um,
I think that's what turned me off a bit from it when I first started getting into it because within Western esotericism, there's three main practices that is done. It's astrology, alchemy, and Kabbalah. Alchemy I know about, but I don't practice. Kabbalah I know about, but astrology is the one that I really didn't. get into much, and I think it's because when I started to dive into it, I was like, okay, every page I turn, they just throw a thousand more things at me, and it's like, okay, I need to take a break, and I never came back from that break. I never came off the break. So yeah, I think that's probably why I never dove too deeply into it.
And that's where a lot of people get to is they realize that there is so much more and it's like I don't even know how to tackle it.
Yeah,
And that's funny because I didn't realize that like most people react in that way because I saw that and I was like, cool, I'm
bring
gonna
it
go
on.
deep with this. Like this is great. And it came to me very naturally, very, very intuitively. So I've just
That's awesome.
never looked back.
That is so awesome. Um, Yeah, Forrest Phoenix is saying signs, houses, planets, modalities, elements, dignities, aspects, rulerships. It's so complicated. Yeah, that just makes me not even
Yep,
wanna
yep.
wanna dive any deeper into it. I mean, I do have the Tricks, but outside of that, I mean, my goodness, it seems like it's a never-ending just ocean of information and knowledge, and I'm scared to swim in that ocean. So
Well, there's also so many different ways, different directions to take it in also. Like not no two astrologers practice exactly the same. So there's,
exactly.
you know, there's such a wide variety of information. It's really incredible. I think
Good,
the other
good.
thing to mention is just my basic definition of astrology, since I haven't quite done that. I like to define it as the study of planetary placements and movements and their correlation to events on Earth, just
Okay,
to
I like
put
that.
it nice and plain and simply. And then on the individual level, it's using the placement of those planets the moment that you were born to have that symbolism, right, transfers into the individual, basically. So you
Okay.
have astrology on different levels. The personal, the family, the societal. You can look at astrology for countries. Like it's again, there's a lot to it.
Yeah, so let's kind of get into that. So can you talk about the differences between like, and if you know it, like electional astrology and horary astrology and natal astrology and all that good stuff?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So if we go back in time, astrology started with the idea of mundane astrology, and that was more
Okay.
so like just life events.
Hmm.
They would use it to look at like agricultural patterns and things with royalty and you know all of that kind of stuff. What is just kind of your community level life events.
Right.
And then I think the first records of what's called horoscopic astrology, which is looking at the individual, what we would view as natal astrology today. Um, I believe the first records of that were like late in the Mesopotamians, but especially that started to be looked at more when it comes to like ancient Greece and in Egypt as well.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so that's where we get looking into the individual. And at that point, it was not as focused on like character and personality like we have in modern Western astrology. It's
Hmm.
very about the self and psychology and all of those. Like modern Western astrology is very psychological based on your own perception.
Okay.
The ancient approach was a little bit more like it was very fate-based actually in the Hellenistic times. So it was very much paired with their ideas of fate and just seeing what will unfold in your life. And especially from the Stoic perspective, it was how can you prepare for those things that are coming up in your life.
Huh.
There was
Okay.
a little bit of character analysis here and there. You find mentionings in the text from those times about, you know, what this might say about a person's personality, but it was like this is what you'll experience in your life. You will see these kinds of people and often in this kind of a time frame. I don't know off the top of my head because I don't focus on electional and horary when exactly they started, but I believe they also have their roots in the Hellenistic time.
Okay.
Um, Electional astrology is basically using, it was also called inceptional astrology.
Wow, I didn't
Um,
know that. Okay.
yeah, so it's transferring the idea, right, of you have the birth chart for an individual. You can essentially have a birth chart for anything that has a creation time, right? Something when something starts, you can pull up a chart for that.
Okay.
So electional astrology is using that to strategically plan when to do certain things, when to start certain things. So you can, look at you have a certain time frame, say you want to start a project in the next year, you can look at the shifting of the planets and find which month, which day, which time might be best for you to start that. Which chart is the best for that thing to start.
Oh, okay. So that would be like starting a business or having a family or,
Yeah,
anything
any
like that.
number of
Okay, okay.
things. Yeah, yeah.
Nice.
People
Very
will use
interesting.
it for businesses, writing books, and you can also plan out different phases of a project as well. It's another one of those things that it can get more and more complex the more you look at it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Horary is another one. I dabble in electional. I kind of experiment with it right now. Horary, I don't personally use. It's really interesting actually. Basically, to my understanding, it's an astrologer using how to concisely explain this. So say a client comes to me with a question. I would use the time that they ask me that question and look at that chart to see if or to get an answer from that chart. So like based on
Okay.
that chart, what is the answer to their question? Exactly how that works, I am uncertain of again because I don't practice that. But yeah, it's a really interesting. Sometimes they'll use the time that the question is asked. Sometimes it'll be the time that it first comes up for the client. There's a couple different ways to go about it, but there's a variety of different uses, obviously.
Interesting, interesting. I kind of have a question based off of what Forrest Phoenix is saying. Forrest Phoenix says Vedic astrology never focused on the individual until they took concepts from Hellenistic astrology and it became sidereal. What is sidereal? What does that mean?
Okay, there's a few things in that comment. Um, there is a lot of play between Hellenistic and Indian astrology, and that's one of the things that I find extremely interesting is that play, how things were kind of transferred back and forth, and that there is kind of a gray area for what came from where. And then there
Okay.
was a time period where a lot of the Hellenistic traditions were lost, but they were preserved by Indian and Persian astrologers. So
Hmm.
there is a lot of connection between those, and there's actually far more similarities between ancient Western astrology and Indian astrology than there are to ancient Western and modern Western astrology. Um,
Okay.
yeah, so, and I don't personally, like, I'm not an expert in Indian astrology, Vedic astrology.
Sure.
I've been gravitating towards calling it Indian astrology because I have heard it's debated whether Vedic is actually an accurate term for it. Um, so that's just an interesting side note. When it comes to sidereal, that term is usually referring to the system that is used to calculate the zodiac, which is another interesting misconception to get into. A lot of people think that the timing of the zodiac is based purely on where the constellations are. That's where you get that 13th constellation that a lot of people like to throw around and say is a 13th sign. Um, it is a constellation in the ecliptic ring with the other 12 that we know. But since we don't go off of where the constellations actually are from our point of view, the 13th one is not actually a sign, just to get that out of the way. Um,
Okay.
so yeah, it's our timing of the zodiac it's not a one-to-one where the constellations are, it's calculated. There are two primary systems for calculating the zodiac. One is the sidereal, the other is tropical. Tropical is usually used in Western astrology, sidereal with Indian astrology. There's a little play between the two of them, but the tropical system is using seasons. It's based on the equinoxes and the solstices. So that's
Okay.
where you get Aries is the start of spring. And I'm not sure, of course, exactly the calculations that go into it, but that's why the dates for the signs are not exactly the same every year. There's some wiggle room. The sidereal system is more based off of the ecliptic itself. So as our perspective has shifted because of the Earth's wobble, that system, based on their calculations, the placement of or the timings of the zodiac has shifted over time. So now I think there's a 24-degree difference between the sidereal and the tropical system for the zodiac.
Got it. Thank you very much for that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I
So
hope all
okay.
that makes sense. I know I get a little bit all over the place. I got that ADHD brain, so
No, no, please, please. That was great. So okay, so let's say that you uh, I don't know what it's called, casted a chart or did a chart or whatever, pulled a chart for me and my birthday. Uh, what are some things that astrology or at least a reading from you? What are some things that you'd be able to tell me based off of my birth chart? I guess it's called.
yeah, yeah. Birth
Okay.
chart, natal chart. Some astrologers do use the phrase casting a chart.
Okay.
Um, so there's I love this question because the like broad answer is really anything you want to know. Generally, I
Okay.
can find it. Maybe not anything, but like, um, I like to start with the overview of sun, moon, and rising because that gives a good foundation for just how I look at charts, for how I interpret things. From there, I tend to like to go into areas of life that are emphasized for you, which is a bit vague, but that's because it'll look a little bit different for everybody. And
Right.
there's a few different techniques to do that. But I like to be able to pull out the areas of your life that you have a focus in, and that could be positive, could be less so. It's could be either way. But
Hmm.
then I can also usually pull out an area of your life that you have some luck in, some good fortune in, and another area that you maybe struggle with. And
Okay.
I feel like pointing those out just to one, give that like confirmation. Sometimes it's just nice to hear those things. A lot of people are like, yeah, I've had a hard time with that my whole life.
Yeah.
And just that confirmation that, like, yeah, you have, I can see that. That can be really helpful for people. And also using that as a place to show them some of the tools that they have. You have different energies in yourself to work with those struggles or make use of the things that come naturally to you.
Okay.
Aside from that, it really becomes focusing on different areas of your life. So the way that the chart is set up, I have sort of nope, that's a bad example chart. Somewhere around here I have an example. Find that in a minute. So just to get into like the components of the chart,
Hmm.
right? You have the planets, they have their themes, their meanings, what they represent for the self. I like to think about the signs as the styles in which those things are done. And then you also have houses. So no, I need an
Now,
example.
before you go any further, are houses the same as mansions?
No. So
Okay.
mansions is that's a concept I'm not entirely familiar with. That is from
Okay.
Indian
Sorry about that.
astrology. Yeah, it's that's one of those that I'm aware of. I'm just not there yet. My
Yeah.
plan
Sure.
once I get through studying Hellenistic astrology is to study Indian astrology actually. So pops up every now and then. So here is a chart, right? You
Okay.
have you have the planets here. They're placed in the signs. And
Okay.
then based on the time that you are born, that's where the rising sign comes into play. So the rising is the sign that was on the horizon the moment you were born. So
Okay.
this is my chart here. I have Libra rising. So that
Okay.
marks the first house. That's the start of the chart. From there, all of the other houses follow along with the zodiac.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, and there are a variety of systems for calculating the houses. This is actually the very first printout I ever did of my chart and is not using the house system that I currently use. Um, and it divides up the houses a little unevenly. I don't love it, but it has its own benefits. I personally like to use the whole sign house system, which gives a nice even, um, you have one sign per house. The entire sign is in that one house, so you have a nice even 30 degrees per sign per house.
Okay.
Um, what the houses are areas of life. So as you go around the chart, you start with the self. The first house is all about the self, character, presentation. It is the only house in the chart that is specifically about the individual.
Okay.
From there, they kind of grow, and you have the bottom half of the chart that is much more about like your immediate life, and then the top half of the chart is more relating to the outside world. But they deal with different topics. So do you want me to go through all the meanings of the houses?
Yeah, please do it.
Cool. So I know that's a common question. I also, again, being more focused in traditional astrology, I use those meanings for the houses. There
Okay.
are some, with of course modern applications, right? Like we need to find places for those things that didn't exist back then. Um, there is a really common thing where people will associate the signs with the houses. So Aries fits into the first house, Taurus into the second, Gemini into the third. And the
Okay.
meanings have gotten blurred by doing that. So I find it really helpful to let the houses exist as their own thing. They have their own identity.
Okay.
Just to preface it with that. So the first house is about the self, the external sense of self, the character, and to a certain extent the physical body. The second house deals with finances, income, and possessions. The third house is one of my favorites to talk about. It deals with siblings, with short distance travel, so it's like your day-to-day errands.
Okay.
Um, your neighborhood, it's like your familiar area, right? Where you run errands, where you go to work. Um,
Okay.
and also in there is like regular spiritual practices. So like
Oh,
if you do,
interesting.
yeah, if you do like full moon rituals or if you go to church every week or, those
That's in your
regular
astrology
practices.
chart?
Yeah.
Really interesting. I would love to get my chart done. Interesting.
Yeah, and that's where things get so because you have all of these areas of life and all of these different meanings for the houses and how the planets fall into the houses will show, what is emphasized for you or how it's done, right? What sign falls in that house is the style in which you do that part of your life. So you get all of these different layers of nuance.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting.
I don't know if I
Um,
need to go through all of the houses right now. I'm sure other people have more important questions.
well, yeah, so Wisconsinite Ooper says, why do you prefer a whole sign?
Awesome question. Okay, so there's a few layers to this, and part of it is just funny to me because I actually picked up using on whole sign pretty early. Um, most like websites and apps and whatnot will default to the Placidus system, and you it just does some funky things to the chart. You end up with some houses that are huge and some that are tiny. You can end up with what's called intercepted signs. So signs will not be like in charge of a house. They get skipped. Um, and it just added, when I was first learning, it added nothing valuable, basically. Like it was, I found it to be a bit of a roadblock. Like it was just it didn't make sense to me. It didn't feel right. It wasn't clicking until I switched to the whole sign system, which at the time I didn't know of the origins of any of the house systems really.
Mhm.
But come to find out, it's widely accepted that the whole sign house system is what was used in Hellenistic astrology. So, and that was before I even knew that Hellenistic astrology was even a thing. So now I kind of have to laugh that that's the direction that I have consciously gone in now, but I've been going in that direction since the start. Um, when it comes to more of why, not only was it just easier for me to wrap my head around using whole signs, like that definitely was a thing at first. Um, it was more accurate for me. Reading my chart using the whole sign system made more sense than it did in Placidus. And that's the same for charts of those people that are close to me as well. Whole sign just it just made sense. Um, I
Okay.
think there are reasons to use different house systems. I think they each kind of have their own purpose in a way. Placidus tends to be a little bit more of that psychological view, a little bit more of like your your own perception of what you're going through. Whereas with something like whole sign, you're getting a little bit more of the concrete, this is just what's happening, this is what's going on.
Okay. All right. I hope that answers your question, Wisconsinite Uber. They also have another question. They said, I just learned about draconic charts. Can you explain that?
So that's one that I want to do a little bit more looking into. My favorite astrology podcast mentioned draconic in one of the recent episodes that I watched, and they kind of laughed at it, and I was like, why is this funny? From their learning, and I haven't personally sought out this information myself, but from what they were saying, draconic, while it's viewed as being like some ancient form of astrology, some old, way to look at charts, it was actually only mentioned relatively recently and arose from a misinterpretation of an older text, where
Hmm.
then you go back and look at that text and it's not actually what they were saying to do. Um, that's about all I know about it. Honestly, I was super curious about it until they were like, it's not actually really a thing. Um, I think maybe there could be some validity into whatever it's meant to be used for, but it kind of came out of happenstance, I feel. So,
Okay. I have a bit of a side question. Um, how do you feel, or well, let me rephrase it. Are you aware of a practice known as human design?
yes.
Okay. How do you feel about their use of astrology? And do you find that to be accurate or a proper use of astrology, or is that just nonsense? Or
So I dabbled in human design a few years ago.
okay.
A little bit after, probably a year after I was started studying astrology, I found human design and actually found it very helpful as its own thing. Reflecting on it now, though, it feels slightly problematic to me.
Okay.
I feel like it has kind of taken on different, because it's essentially a melding of astrology, I believe the Kabbalah, the I Ching,
Yep.
I think there's
That's it.
another. Okay.
Nope. That's it. That's it.
I feel like each of those can exist on their own. I
Yes.
feel
Correct.
like, and I'm not well versed in either, the other things.
Mhm.
I'm astrology. Um, but even just with astrology, the more that I learn, the more I get into it, everything that I found helpful from human design that I didn't see in astrology initially, I think it's all still there. I
Okay.
don't think you need this, composite system to get that wisdom from it, basically. It just takes a little bit, not even necessarily more effort, it's just a different way to use astrology to get similar information. But it's funny, the more I learn different techniques and apply them, the more it will actually remind me of things that I learned in human design.
Interesting. Thank you for that.
Hmm.
Excellent answer. Forest Phoenix Productions says, does the guest do astrocartography? I tried looking into it and it looks so confusing. So are you familiar with astrocartography?
Everybody wants to know about astrocartography right now, and I would love to
Uh-oh.
know why. I don't personally use it.
What is
That
it?
comes up all the time. It is basically somehow using your chart to look at different areas of the world that will be more conducive to different things for you. So, like
Okay,
looking at, if you want big, like social interaction and like just happy, fun, kind of life, I think that's the Venus line that you look at. I'm by no means knowledgeable in astrocartography. I just have a vague understanding of it. But yeah, it's this whole thing where you can basically be like, I want to live with this intention. What area of the world would be best for me to live for that?
okay,
Um, yeah.
okay. Thank you. Interesting.
Yeah.
My oldest child chat chat. My oldest child's chat lines. Oh, chart. I guess it means chart. Chart lines up with my draconic, and my youngest with my natal. It's interesting. I don't know what that means. I'm sorry. I'm
Interesting.
sure you might know what that means, but I don't know what that means.
There's factoring in the draconic one is interesting to me. Um, to my understanding, the draconic chart, it takes like the layout of the planets in your chart and shifts it somehow. I'm not super clear on what it exactly how it does that. Um, so I can't speak too much about like, familial overlap with that. But an
Sure.
interesting point is one of the cool things that tends to happen with astrology is you, in a way, I like to kind of jokingly say you inherit placements from like your family. Um, where like I like to use the example of my family because I know it off the top of my head. I have a Scorpio moon, and so does one of my sisters, and our mom has a Scorpio sun. She has a Leo moon, and her dad has a Leo sun. My other sister has a Sagittarius moon. Our dad has a Sagittarius moon. So you have a lot of that like kind of inheriting placements just mixed up from
Huh.
parents. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. I how do how do I want to word this? Okay, so I don't do anything with astrology, but I do use planetary magic within my practice. So I wonder if astrology looks at the planets in the same way as Western ceremonial does, magic. So, um, for example, Venus, of course, everyone knows would be love, or Jupiter would be money. Mercury would be wisdom, knowledge, things like that. The moon would be dreams and astral projection and all that other stuff. So, does astrology sort of have the same kind of correspondences, or no? Is like Jupiter completely different, has nothing to do with money and prosperity, and it's something with your dog or something. Uh, how does it work?
Similar. I think it's
Okay,
similar. Um, from your descriptions, it sounds like a lot of those significations are more from a modern take,
okay,
um, which, not all of the modern associations with the planets and astrology are like wrong
of course,
necessarily. I think there is the necessity to especially add things as we, progress as a society. Um, I think there are how to phrase this. So like Venus, you mentioned Venus. I like to emphasize the values component of Venus.
okay, interesting,
So like what my keywords for Venus are love, beauty, and values. So the love component definitely is there, but there's much more to her than just that.
sure. Okay.
And I'm not sure how that, may or may not reflect in your own practice.
Yeah, well, it's similar. So on the surface, Venus would be love, but you wouldn't learn anything different about Venus until you go through what we would call the mysteries, which requires a whole bunch of initiations and studying and all that stuff. Not most people would not go through it. That's when you would come across the beauty or the values or any other sort of correspondence that Venus, childbirth and all that other stuff that she might, rule over. But for the most part, if you were to open up any occult book on correspondence, is Venus is love. That
Right.
would be the surface thing there. So, okay, so it's similar, but it's not an
Yeah.
exact, you
Well, and
know.
it sounds like potentially like that surface level is likely similar. Like Jupiter, I wouldn't necessarily associate with money. Part of that though is because when you look at the planets in the context of a chart, you have a house for money. The second house is dealing with money. So
Okay.
Jupiter though is about luck and growth, expansion, um, good fortune, things like that. So it does easily relate to money, but not always directly.
So, okay, so then, and sorry if you already went over this and I guess I missed it. What is a house? You know how like Jupiter is a planet or Gemini is a zodiacal sign. What is a house? Like what exactly is that?
So the way I like to sort of break down those three components, the planets, the signs, and the houses. You
Mhm.
have the planets that are the theme. So let's use Mars. Mars being about action, energy, direction, also anger and aggression, but I like to focus more on the energy things. Say Mars is in, let's put it in Capricorn. Capricorn being an earth sign is grounded. It's about practical reality. It's also a cardinal sign. So it's about getting things started. It wants to sort of lead things, get things in motion. So Mars, when it's in Capricorn, it's exerting its energy in that way. So you have Mars, the planet of energy and action, that energy and action is being done in the grounded Capricorn way. It sort of stabilizes. Capricorn also will give Mars some structure, so it's a little bit less unwieldy like it can be in other signs. When you put that in a house, that will um, give emphasis in that area of life. So where somebody with
Okay.
their Mars and Capricorn would always, that's just how they're going to take action in general. When you put it in a house, it's going to be especially prominent there. That's where, as when we're talking Mars, right, action and energy, that's where a lot of their energy will be focused. So, say it's in the fifth house. The fifth house is about joy, creativity, and children. So, there would be that action, that direction being taken in some form of fifth house area of life. And that's where
I
you
see.
get that
Okay.
like, here's the archetypal base of it. We have free will. I definitely believe that there is a component of free will that from that archetypal base, you can live it out a little bit differently. So for some people, that might end up being, the fifth house being about children and having children and wanting to have children and taking the steps needed with Mars and Capricorn, right? Bringing that into reality. For other people, it might be artistic creativity. They might take that grounded sense of action into just creating other things in the world, creating art.
Well, thank you. Beautiful answer. Excellent. Excellent. Now, you did just mention free will, and I think you mentioned it at the beginning as well. So, would you mind talking a little bit about free will in conjunction to astrology? Because I think a lot of people think that, if you're able to chart out certain things based on, when I'm born or when I start a project or a business, do I really have free will because you're able to chart that out? So, would you be able to touch on that a bit?
I love that topic. So, as with the debate on whether astrology is causal or just correlation, this is a long-standing debate, both of these things.
I'm sure.
And you
I'm
can
sure.
view it as sort of an axis. Like I like to think about it as like the political axis where you have like one, the two planes there. Um, where some people think we have absolutely no free will, and some people will think we have all of their free will. if you believe that astrology is a thing, that there, can be some truth gleaned from it, you're not going to believe that it's total free will because you have some base of things.
Right.
The way that I look at it is that astrology is showing us just the base. It's the archetypal base and framework. It will outline, you can see highlighted time periods in your life, certain things that might be more active during certain years in your life. But you have your own free will in how to live from that, how to
Exactly.
use the energy that you have, and then you also have the free will of all the other people around you acting in relation to you as well. So it's somewhere in the middle to me. It's both. We have the framework, but we choose, maybe not necessarily consciously, but we choose what to do with it from there.
Excellent. Okay. All right. Yeah, that's kind of how I explain tarot readings or scrying or the bones or when I was doing OWAM, anything like that. When people ask, about free will, if you're able to tell me all this, do I actually have free will? That's kind of how I would explain it. So thank you for
Yeah.
that. Very, very
Yeah.
interesting. Um, yeah, yes. The fate versus free will debate. Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
So I have one more question before I will turn everything over to you and let the audience, take it from there. But so with all these different astrology systems, I don't know, Vedic astrology, Western, Babylonian. I think there's Tibetan astrology and Chinese astrology. All these different. So okay, so say you were to cast a chart for me to start a business this summer or something like that, right? But then I went to a Chinese astrologer and they also casted a chart for me to start a business this summer. Can I expect like a very similar sort of result from the both of you? Or would it be, I mean, I wouldn't expect it to be wildly different, but would there be differences? Or can I sort of expect the same kind of a thing?
I think that's such an interesting topic. So there's a few things there. One of the
Okay.
big things that I like to entertain because it just makes me kind of happy to think about is that all of these archetypes that we see in these various systems, not even just astrology, beyond that, right? We have all of these archetypes and they show up so similarly from culture to culture around the world.
Okay.
Like, I love that. So I think there's something to that connects the combination of we're working with somehow through whatever mechanism that is, similar archetypal energies and using the same planets.
Hmm.
I think there's likely overlap.
Okay.
Where it gets different is that each culture is going to view, utilize, and understand astrology from the lens of their culture.
Right.
So it's going to be used and viewed in just slightly different ways. They may emphasize different things, view, one thing that we view as good may be bad to them, and vice
Right.
versa. So there's those things to factor in. A lot of people will compare Western versus Indian astrology. And because of the different systems for calculating the zodiac, you end up being different signs, even though they're using the same zodiac. So, like in Western astrology, I'm an Aquarius sun, and in Indian astrology, I'm a Capricorn sun. And they're both accurate from those points of view because
Right.
they're using just a different lens to look at it through. I
I
think
see. Okay.
in your hypothetical situation, I think you would, as long as you were clear about exactly what it is you wanted to focus on, you might get similar results. Um, but if you gave them a general thing, they might take it in different directions. It would be more reflective of what they would value in that situation.
I see. Okay. All right. And so I guess it's kind of like I guess maybe Orthodox Christianity, where they all kind of believe the same thing, but depending on where you are in the world, the worship practice and some little ancillary things might be a little different based on the culture. So the Greeks wouldn't do the same thing as the Syriacs, and the Easterns wouldn't do the same things as old Catholics and all that other stuff. So
Yeah,
I think it's
yeah.
kind of like that. Interesting. Very interesting. Um, Do you have any other topics that you wanted to touch on before I dive into the audience questions?
I think I covered my overview that I wanted to go off of. I will
Awesome.
scroll through my comments to see what I've been ignoring here.
Yeah, please, please. Um, E. Burns says that according to Chinese astrology, we are in the year of the rabbit. So I don't know what that means, but are we in any sort of year according to the practices that you do, the Western astrology?
So we don't really have like large scale years like that, right? We can
Okay.
use like each individual will have your own birth chart, and from there you can have years that are specific to you.
Okay.
And then we also have, right, you have the planets where they were when you were born, which is your chart. The planets still move. So we have where the planets currently are that we factor in. So it's less of like we are in this, a repeating cycle of we are in a Aries year or something like that, and more of just where are the planets right now.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Uh, bar 2011. I don't know what I don't know if this is an astrology question. I think this is a finance question, and if so, then you're in the wrong live stream. But maybe you know what this means. I think this might be a ticker for a crypto. But he says, or they say, what do you think about XLM? Do you know what that is? That an astrology thing? Okay, so yeah, I think you're asking about finance. We're not talking about
Nothing
crypto
that I
or
know
stocks or
about.
anything here. So sorry, Bar2. You're in the wrong live stream for that. Someone was asking about Chiron. I'd be curious to hear the guest thoughts on that too. Okay, so Chiron. I know of
Chiron.
Chiron as the guide across the river. So what is Chiron in astrology?
So I don't personally use Chiron a whole lot. Out of the things that I don't currently use, I know a good amount of Chiron. Um, So Chiron, other minor planets and asteroids and things like that, I don't currently focus on just because I'm focusing on especially learning the Hellenistic approach. We're focusing on the seven visible planets. So all the
Okay,
extra things are just kind of like garnishes. They're just kind of sprinkles. Um, However, Chiron specifically, Chiron is the wounded healer.
okay,
So I view Chiron as a point where you have immense struggles there. You have some really hard times, but because of going through those struggles, you're able to help other people with those things.
hmm,
I wouldn't say that Chiron is always useful in a chart. Things like Chiron, asteroids, Pluto, Neptune, Uranus, they're really only I only use them, bring them up in individuals' charts if they are heavily aspected by other planets, by the seven visible planets. So if they're interacting with other things in the chart, then they will kind of be brought into the mix. So it's not always super relevant to the individual. But yeah, Chiron, wounded healer, often one of those struggles that like you just always kind of have, but you can help other people with.
yeah, that's interesting because Wisconsin Night Uper says, I love Chiron for trauma healing as I'm a social worker. So yeah, I guess
Yep.
that would play right into that. Um, Forrest Phoenix says, would you go by I guess that's White House or Whole House. Would you go by Whole House or Placidus for Chiron? Because it's in my first house in Placidus, but second in Whole House. So hopefully you understand what they're asking
Yeah,
there.
so with anything, I think it depends on one, what you are used to, how you understand your chart, and two, what kind of information you're looking to get from it. Placidus and other quadrant systems tend to be more of that psychological view. So it's your perspective, it's how you interpret to be going through those things. Whereas whole sign would give you the this is what's actually going on. However, you may interpret it differently, but this is what is actually going on with this thing.
Okay, all right. Forrest Phoenix, I hope that answers your question. I can feel Chiron transits in certain aspects. Um, Do you mean you can feel it like moving? Is that what you're saying, Melissa Muse? Project Ethos. I don't think she's going to do anything on the live stream. I think that's a little bit too much on the spot. But I'm sure if you were to contact her after the stream and pay for it, I'm sure she'll be happy to do a chart for you. But I don't think she'd be interested in doing a live. I mean, of course, you could tell me if I'm wrong, but I know I wouldn't want to do anything like that on a live stream. At least not so suddenly. So.
Yeah, I
But he was
do. I
asking
do
if you'd
offer
be open.
private readings. I have private
There
readings
you go.
available. Link in my bio. My lives that I do by myself, I don't usually get into chart interpretation. Every once in a while, I'll get into just like sun, moon, rising interpretations if we have, small group. But if you really want my breakdown of your chart, that's a reading. Links in the bio.
Okay, and yes, he did mean private. Okay, sorry, Project Ethos. Yes, he did
Cool.
mean,
Yeah.
and I will be getting a private one from you as well. This has been very, very interesting.
Awesome.
All right, so guys, we're coming close to the hour here. We want to be cognizant of the Bliss Seeker's time. Don't want to keep her any longer than she has to be here. So, any final questions? Anything extra here? Let
I
me
do
scroll
also
back up.
I have more time if you would like to spend more time
Oh,
too.
okay, okay,
So
cool, nice,
I'm
nice.
open for whatever. My followers are wanting to know what your big three are, your sun, moon, rising, if you know them.
I have no idea.
No idea.
I
All
have no
right.
idea. I don't do anything with astrology. Unless there's a quick thing that I could do, right? Because I know the time I was born. So if there's
Okay.
a quick thing that I could do to figure it out, I'll do it. But I don't know.
I
I'm
mean,
sorry, guys.
my preferred website is astro.com. If you have, something handy that you can pop on over to that, it's pretty easy to pull up your chart.
Astro.com.
Yes.
All right, let's see what we got. Astro.com. Horoscope and astrology, the art of astrology. So what do I do? Charts and calculations?
There is, I have my laptop right here. I would never remember what the site looks like off the top of my head. I think there is a tab for free chart something. Let's see. Free horoscopes.
Okay, click on free horoscopes.
All horoscopes at a glance.
Okay,
And then the first option should be chart drawing ascendant.
okay.
And then it should take you to a page to either input your information or choose to
Yeah.
create an account or not.
All right. One second, everybody. We're trying to find out my big three. I don't even know what that means. My big three.
That'll be a good way to teach the big three a little bit. Scrolling through my comments here.
Let me
Hello,
just check my
everybody.
birth certificate really quick just to verify the PM or AM. Just give me one second.
Cool. Sorry, I've just been ignoring you guys. I hope you are all doing well.
Where is it? Okay, there it is. All right. All right. All right.
Marta, I hope you do sign up for a reading.
726. All right. And then country. Um, Sewell. That's what it was. Sewell. All right. Oh, there we go. All right, continue. Let's see what we got. Oh, wow. I guess I should move the camera shit because I don't know what this means.
Yeah, it'll
Um,
probably look very confusing to you. So the best thing to do, so you pull up your chart, it's going to look something like this, right?
yes.
The other part that is on the screen somewhere is this chart. This will help you out a little bit more
Yes. In the corner, yes.
because, yep, that'll list what the planets are by name and then what sign they're on. You can ignore the number before the abbreviation for the sign. That gets into some extra details, but sun, moon are right there at the top.
Okay, yeah. So sun, moon, and then I think that's I don't know what that is. Uranus? I don't know what that is. Oh, here's the little guide right here. Oh, okay. So that's Mercury. So sun, moon, and Mercury are at the top. Is that my big three?
So sun, moon, and then ascendant or rising is the other one, and that's actually AC.
Let me
So
just
if you're
let me just because I don't know what I'm looking at. Hold on. Uh, oh, Jesus Christ. Let me take this out. There we go. Jeez. There we go.
now we're putting you on the spot, huh?
Can you see or
All
no?
right, we have sun in Virgo. Let's see, moon in, is that Scorpio?
I don't know.
We're backwards, I think. And then ascendant Pisces. Okay. So we
Yeah,
have
what does that mean?
Pisces rising, Virgo sun, and
Oh,
Scorpio
sorry.
moon. That okay, I can see that.
All right, what does that mean? Am I going to die? Just kidding.
Everybody always asks that for some reason.
Am I going to die? Is it over for me, Doc? Is it over,
Right?
Doc? Hold
All
on.
right,
This is not.
Pisces rising.
Sorry, I got to fix my.
Virgo. Gotta fix your
Okay, there
setup
we
now.
go. My my tripod was all jacked up. All right, there we go.
Oh, one of my people guessed the Scorpio moon. That's funny.
Pisces rising, Scorpio moon say everything about I don't study astrology.
I mean, yes and no. So, sun, moon, and rising, those are I like that that's becoming more common to know because that does give you much more information than just the sun sign. And
Okay,
they are the most specific of the placements. So, like
I'm
the
gonna
sun
save
moves
this.
through all the signs in a year, the moon moves through all the signs in a month, and the rising sign will go through the entire zodiac in a day.
Okay,
So, you get pretty specific with those. When it comes to interpreting them, the sun is your internal sense of self. That's, why it is usually accurate, right? It is a core part of who you are. It is a big part of your personality. Um, it's just not the only part of yourself, but it is still a good
sure.
chunk. The rising sign is your external sense of self. It's how you
Okay.
present yourself. It's how you move through the world. It's how you interact with things around you, especially
Hmm.
like your immediate, like things like, you're walking down the street. It's how you are experiencing that.
Okay.
Um, the moon is the level deeper. It's the intuition, the emotions, it's the physical body. It's how you emotionally react to things, and it's also the kinds of things that you need.
Okay.
So you have this kind of three level thing with the sun, moon, and rising. So for you having Virgo sun, Virgo is attention to detail.
Yes.
It's a it's a mutable earth sign. I like the analogy of clay for Virgo because it's earth, but it's malleable. But it takes some work to mold it, right? It's not just going to, like Pisces is a mutable water sign. It can just tip over and flow.
Right.
Virgo takes more effort. It's consciously crafting things, tinkering. Tinkering is my favorite Virgo word.
That's actually really really accurate because I'm actually dealing with that in my career right now,
Okay.
where they're trying to mold me into this thing that they want me to be, and I'm like, no, I don't want to do that, and they're like, but you have to, and they're so, and I'm trying to resist, but if I want to keep getting paid, I have to do it. So
Yeah, yeah. And that is that core of who you are. That is that center of your personality. The external sense of self, the rising sign, you have Pisces. So that's where you get into those like you meet somebody and they're one way and then you get to know them more and they're actually a different way.
mhm.
So when somebody first meets you, they're more likely to see the Pisces side of you, which is softer. It is Pisces is that like connection to the whole. It is
Okay.
it's the mutable water sign. So it's also mutable signs are flexible. They are adaptable. They can change. And being a water sign, it is very fluid. It is also looking at the emotions and kind of what's underneath things. Very, very go with the flow.
Okay.
So you
Okay.
you probably have that on the surface, and then you get to know you, and you're a little bit more centered, a little bit more
Hmm.
grounded. Um, Still adaptable, still flexible, but it takes time, it takes effort.
Wow. Okay.
And then you get to that Scorpio moon. I also have a Scorpio moon. Um, Scorpio is intense. It's arguably the sign with the worst stereotypes associated with it because of that intensity.
Great.
Um, and that's one of my biggest pet peeves because it's I think that the thing with Scorpio moon is not everything has to be so intense.
Hmm.
But in a way for us it does. Like that
Yeah.
we need that depth and intensity. It is just part of what we need. And other people just, if they don't have that, they don't understand it. They don't understand why we make everything so deep. It's because that's where we like to be. That is just an
Exactly.
interest.
Exactly.
And this is where we can also bring in houses. So going back to your sun, you have your sun in your seventh house. And the seventh
Okay.
house is about relationships. It's about the
Oh.
other. So where the first house is about the self, you go across the way, the seventh is about the other. So it tends to be about
Hmm.
like romantic relationships, those important one-on-one relationships. So that to a certain extent is going to be where your sense of self is.
Okay.
Sometimes people with sun in the seventh can overly attach themselves or overly identify with a partner,
Hmm.
or they feel like they're not quite themselves without, or, and this is where, there's the different directions from the archetypal base.
Right.
um I lost the second point I was gonna make. It's gone. There's different ways that that can look, but there's, with it being Virgo, it still does maintain though that Virgo nature, right? So
Yeah.
even though like your sense of self is in relationships, it's still going to be that tinkering, that wanting to make things work, that figuring things out. Your Scorpio moon is in your ninth house, and the ninth house is the house of spirituality,
Oh yeah. Yeah. Get into
foreign
that.
travel, religion, and the occult would go in the ninth house. So that is, that's where your heart is, quite literally here, where your
Yes.
moon is there. Yeah.
That's so cool. I'm definitely going to get a full reading from you. This is insane. This is literally
Yeah,
insane.
and that's
I'm
that's literally just three placements, right? Like that's why I love this stuff is because I can get so much information just from those, and then it only gets more detailed and more nuanced.
wow. Yeah. I can't wait. I cannot wait. Oh, your son is in your seventh too, Forest Phoenix. That's awesome.
Nice.
That's awesome. Alchemic Mason, what's going on, brother? Glad to have you. Glad to have you. We got the Bliss Seeker with us today. We are discussing astrology, my friend. Astrology. Glad to have you on here.
I have an interesting question from my comments
Yeah.
about Scorpio as an eagle.
As an eagle?
So, yeah, so this is an interesting, I'm not super well versed on this topic, but I think it is interesting to bring up. Um, Scorpio, there's that intensity, the passion, the depth. There's also the notion of transformation. So there have, and I this is one of those topics that's on my list to do some more research on. Um, but there's the idea that there are sort of three versions of Scorpio, where you sort of evolve through the three forms. Um, and I do not remember off the top of my head the third one, but yeah, there's the scorpion, there's the eagle, there's something else. But the idea that Scorpio has that transformative capacity and that there's different uses of that depth and intensity, that sometimes it is the more primal defensive use and sometimes it can be a little bit more consciously evoked.
Nice. That actually brings
Hmm.
up something. I'm 100% confident they were trolling, but I want to get your perspective. So yesterday, I think it was, I was live and I was telling the audience about today. And someone who I think was trolling had mentioned that they live in Canada, and in Canada, you are able to change your sun sign. Like you're just able just to just swap out your sun sign. Have you ever heard of it? I'm completely sure this is
Probably just
trolling.
a troll, but
Okay, okay.
yeah.
That's what I was assuming. But they were like, yeah, I'm just like they have us put it on like all of our legal things, and you can just swap it in and out whenever you want. And I was like, what? You got your
No.
sun sign on your driver's license? I doubt that. But um, that's what they were saying. So I only see her moon when she's mad. Uh, I think I may have missed something there for what you were saying, Phoenix. Let me scroll back up here. Maybe I
Oh,
missed
is that
something.
that might be, is that my Phoenix? What is the rest of
Phoenix
your
forever.
username, Phoenix? Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's Scorpio. So usually I like, so wow, I can get a sentence out. I have an Aquarius sun, Scorpio moon, and Libra rising. So I come off as a little bit more Libra, a little bit more gentle, but very diplomatic. You'll also see my midheaven, my 10th house, which is Cancer, so more of that caring, nurturing component, right, when I'm on my lives. But when people get under my skin a little bit more and I get not necessarily angry, that's when you see the Scorpio. I don't show the Scorpio moon very much. It takes a lot to bring out the depths of that, but Phoenix there has seen that shine through a few times.
Yeah, I'm kind of like usually I'm the way that I am right now, but there are certain topics that I get into on my live streams where the whatever placement that's anger and all that comes out. I get really really intense sometimes when I'm on here talking about the New Age or the Kabbalion or something along those lines. I get really really into it, and yeah, and I think people
Yep.
like that. I think they like seeing me get riled up and like intense, and I've been told I'm a funny angry person. Like it's comedic when I'm angry, and I guess I do that on purpose. I try to make it kind of comedic because I'm not really mad. I'm just trying to play to the algorithm. So,
Yep,
um,
yep.
but yeah, and yes, Alchemic Mason. We were talking about that earlier. This is a weakness of mine too. Astrology, and of course, as everyone knows, herbalism. Those are the two occult topics that I don't know much, if not anything about. So yeah, this is a very, very interesting thing. So yeah, do catch it. Oh, also, Bliss Seeker, are you okay if I were to upload this to YouTube afterwards? If I were to put it on my YouTube, are you cool
Yeah,
with that?
for
Okay,
sure.
cool. So then yes, Alchemic Mason, it will be on YouTube. If not tonight, then tomorrow. And yeah, star seeds. Yeah, let's not talk about that. I don't think anybody wants to see me flip out right now. So let's not talk about that. Um, I don't know if this is for me or if it's for you, Bliss Seeker, but Forest Phoenix is saying, "Do you have any planets in Gemini? I need to know." I don't. I don't
Okay.
know. Did you see anything in Gemini? I don't know.
I don't remember off the top of my head. I was looking for specific things. I don't have anything in Gemini, but I have an Aquarius stellium.
Um, this so the top chart it has numbers and then zodiacal signs next to it. Um, I don't. There's no Gemini there. It's Virgo, Scorpio, Libra, Libra, Virgo, Cancer, Capricorn, 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 Scorpio, Aquarius, and Cancer. There's no Gemini. Is that
No,
it
no
or no?
Gemini. So,
Okay,
and
so
the thing about that is that you won't have any planets in Gemini. Like those are the signs
oh,
that you'll
okay.
have planets in. But even so, like we look at my chart here, and I have planets here. I have planets, all over here. There's no
Mhm.
planets like up here, but I still have those signs in my chart. They just don't have any planets in them. So you'll have Gemini somewhere. It's just not
I don't know. I
don't
mean,
have
do you want
planets.
to take a look? I don't know. I really don't know how to read this thing. I don't know. Um, is it this or the other thing?
Yeah, so so you have that Pisces rising, Pisces for the first house, and this is a dang Placidus chart.
I'm
So yeah,
sorry.
you don't have all good. Astro.com defaults to Placidus, so I'm used to it. Um, Semi used to it. You don't have anything in Gemini, you don't have anything in Aries, Taurus. Leo.
Leo.
Nothing in Leo.
Sorry, it's a Charmed thing. It's from Charmed back in the day. So nothing in Gemini. Okay.
No Gemini.
So no Gemini, Forest Phoenix. Sorry. Or maybe not sorry. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Gemini
We
is
have
at
a
the bottom.
running joke. We have a running joke in my community that I used to talk about how like Gemini was like my least favorite sign. I don't actually have a least favorite, but like it can be a little annoying. But all of the people, most of the people that like come and hang out on my lives and that are my my crew, they have Gemini placements. So it's just kind of a running joke that usually people in my circle will have some sort of Gemini in their chart.
Ah, well, I don't. Is that a bad thing? I don't know. Am I going to die?
Not a bad thing at all.
Just kidding. Just kidding. Just kidding.
Elizabeth, your moon is in Gemini? I love that.
I was just curious because you're so book smart. Geminis usually like to study everything. I think that might be the Virgo in me. I don't know. I think that might be the whole, I like details and I don't accept just any old answer. So
And that's where you get like topics like that are not like being book smart is not there's more to it than that, right? Because
right.
Gemini, their version of intellect and learning is more of a base level. It's more of the just I'm going to learn about this and I'm going to learn about this and I'm going to learn about the basics of this and they just kind of keep bouncing all over. Whereas Sagittarius, Gemini's opposite, is a little bit more of the I'm going to become a teacher in this one area. And you actually have Sagittarius in your 10th house, which is about career and public image. So that's
Is it
more
wait,
of
is it good? Is it a good thing? Because I really want to do really good at my career. So is it good or no?
if you want to be a teacher, really in general, then yes, having Sagittarius there is good. And there's there's a couple other things to look at in tandem with that, but that's where Sagittarius is going to be more of the like here's how this works. Scorpio helps with that because it's like okay, let's get to the core of how this works. What's at the root of this? Virgo also does have that with the tinkering, with wanting to make things work, with wanting to fix things. There is that level of knowledge, right? It's kind of these different versions of those book smarts.
So what I hear you saying is quit my job and be a full-time influencer because that would be the best thing. All right, done. Done. Oh, and sorry, this is just an aside. This has nothing to do with astrology. Alchemic Mason, we got to talk about this later. We're going to talk about this later, my friend. You and I.
Ooh.
So this just came in the mail, my friend. We got to talk about this a little later. All right, sorry, back to the topic.
That could relate to astrology, though.
It could, yes.
That
Being
is
that,
definitely a figure in the history of astrology.
excellent. Link me on Disco. I will. Don't worry, brother. I got you. Do you want to talk about astrology? Ask in the North Star Vision. Do you know what that means? I don't know what that means. What's the North Star Vision?
Not familiar.
I'm sorry. Oh, that's his name. Okay. So
Oh,
you mean ask you about astrology? Because that's what we have the Bliss Seeker here for. Um, but sure. Astrology is the second Hermetic art. Yes. Yep. We were talking about that earlier. Let's see. Let's see. Yeah, the
I
Virgo
actually have a
Pisces playing off each
question
other.
for you. So,
Sure.
astrology and relating into Hermeticism, how, because that's something that I am loosely familiar with, but I'm not familiar with the history of it.
So that is probably something that Alchemic Mason can, since I don't study astrology at all, I would not be able to put it in the context of Hermeticism, with the exception of the fixed stars and the planets for cosmological purposes. But that gets into religion, and I don't think they're asking about that. That gets into like the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and each of the planets and how you come down from the mind of God to incarnate on Earth and all that other stuff. I don't think they're asking like that. So I don't know if I would be the best person to connect it to astrology. Maybe Alchemic Mason, he might be able to answer that, but yeah, I wouldn't know exactly how it connects since I don't study astrology at all.
I think more of
Um,
the question of like Hermeticism in general, because I see some people come through like my lives and whatnot, and they don't understand how ancient astrology is, and they think it is only a hermetic practice, I think.
Oh, so I mean, so there is lore that Hermes is the progenitor, the originator of astrology. But then you would have to kind of go with the notion that Hermes was a real person. And of course, Alchemic and I don't agree on that. I think he was more of a personified concept rather than a walking, talking person. So uh, I would say that it goes back as far as human history. Of course, writing, as far as we know, only goes back 5,000 to 6,000 years to the Mesopotamian, Babylonian, Sumerians. But I would venture to say that it goes even before that. I would say the moment humans could open their eyes and looked at the sky, they were probably like, "Holy crap! There's something up there, and they're trying to communicate with this guy." So I would assume it goes all the way back. This will
Hmm.
take some time to write up. Yeah, I would assume so, academic. Um, but yeah, in terms of how Hermeticism would use astrology, outside of the fixed stars for the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, and the planets for the aeons and how they spin in their aeons, which causes fate, which of course you can be outside of. Um, I probably wouldn't be able to answer that. Let's see here. Could he have not been an archetype in a vision? Do you mean Hermes, Tris Megistus in a vision? So, like someone else had a vision of Hermes. Um, who would have had that vision? Because then that person should be the prophet of Hermeticism and not Hermes. Um, but yeah, let's see. The ancients didn't have a technology, but now we have a technology. Is a way of understanding. I'm sorry, North Star Vision. I'm not entirely sure what you're getting at here. If you think of the spheres as the fates, which is what I just which we use new to which is the mind of God to overwrite, then the spheres, and then he's going to finish it. That's only part one. He's going to finish it. But yeah, the spheres would be what we would consider fate. Well, they deal with fate as they spin in their aeons. That causes vibrations, which fate. It's a whole thing.
Yep, yep.
Um, I'm just waiting for him to finish what he was saying there. But yeah, it's something that I definitely need to study up more on because I know during my daily rituals, every morning when I wake up, I honor my ancestors. Then I work with the planets. I go through each of the planets. They're actually hanging up behind this thing. This right here. This I'll just take it down and show you. Where is it? Here they are. Come on. And then this one. There we go. Oh, I've got the planetary sigils here that I work with, all the planets and their seals. So every morning I call these guys in, and then after them I work with the fixed stars through David Rankine's planetary intelligence system. And I would love to have a better understanding of the fixed stars and how they operate, because Hermetics, at least that I can find, doesn't really dive into the fixed stars so much. So
Hmm.
I would definitely love to expand my knowledge in that area.
Yeah, that's one area of astrology that I haven't quite delved into is the fixed stars. There's a whole lot there.
Yeah, yeah, we put them into three. Actually, you know what? Let me see if I can just do a quick. Let me see if I can do a quick. Here. So this is the Hermetic cosmology, right? So the three rings here. Sorry, the mirror effect is tripping me out. Hold on, I got to turn that off. That's flipping me out. There we go. Jesus Christ. Okay, so the three rings here, these are the fixed stars, right? I would interpret these as God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit, but that's neither here nor there. These are the fixed stars. This is God here, and this is Sophia, this little lady right here. So this realm here is essentially where the three different aspects of God kind of hang out. And then in order for a human to get to Earth, we have to pass through this. And then we come down through these seven spheres here. These are the planets. Their names are down at the bottom because Sophia's in the way. So their names are down here. But all the planets fit in here. These are the seven spheres. And then we got the elements. If I can get it in a ball here, the elements are right here in the center there. All the little brown and green are all the elements. So when we leave the mind of God, we travel down through each of these fixed stars and then down through the planets, which is where we gain personality, I guess. And then we come down into Earth and we incarnate. So to the extent of my knowledge, that is as far as I get when it comes to astrology in Hermetics. I wish I knew a lot more, but unfortunately, I never really studied astrology. So
That is so interesting. I love that.
thank you. Thank you very much. Let me see here. Okay, so I think he finished it here. If you think of the spheres as the fates, which we use Nu, or the mind of God, to overwrite, then the spheres, scroll down a little bit, are the controllers of the not human minds and souls, hence fate. So they would have influence over, scroll down, almost everything. So hermetically speaking, if you can determine their influence, you can further have control over destiny. If alchemy is the art of moving towards perfection, astrology is the art of understanding what it is. They are part and parcel.
Hmm.
Very good
Interesting.
explanation, Alchemic Mason. Thank you for that, brother. The stars are above us and the world around us is below. Amen. As above, so below. Thank you, brother. Appreciate that. Melissa says, ancient Hellenistic astrology and Stoicism have a lot in common. I would think you would agree since you had mentioned Stoicism earlier.
And I wouldn't say they're like it would depend on the perspective of the Hellenistic people, right? Not all of the astrologers of the time would have been in line with the Stoic philosophies, but from what we can gather from the existing texts and whatnot that we have, it was very common to pair the Stoic worldview and philosophy with astrology.
Wow. Awesome.
It was kind of a like accepting your fate, right? Looking at your chart as this is your fate, and the Stoic perspective was very much to accept this is what it is, this is what you have to work with, and from there you can prepare, you can learn to work with what you have.
Okay, awesome. Tim, it was David Rankine, and the book is from Hadean Press. It's called Conjuring the Planetary Intelligences. I would show you, but it's an ebook. It's not. It's a part of their Guide to the Underworld series. So those are mainly ebooks rather than physical books because they're only like 20 pages long. So no one's going to pay for that to be published. So they did it in ebook form. But it's David Rankine, who is well respected within Western ceremonial magical circles, and Hadean Press. Conjuring the Planetary Intelligences. Check that out if you're interested in doing magic with the fixed stars. But they say it's not the right way to manifest. The spirit is in that lie. Wait. I think I skipped something. But how many people have lost their minds on when and went crazy because of this kind of stuff? I don't know anybody that's lost their mind and went crazy due to astrology. Do you have any cases? Like, is there a name that I can Google or anything that you have, North Star Vision? I've never heard of that. I'm not sure if you've heard of anything like that, Bliss Seeker. No, yeah, I don't
No,
think
I
you've,
mean, there's people that get way too wrapped up in it, but nothing to that extent.
yeah, I've never heard that. How do you know the European stars studying this? I'm not North Star. I'm sorry. Almost everything you've been saying, I don't. I'm sorry. And I don't mean this in a mean way. Please don't take it. But is English your first language? Maybe that might be. Maybe you're trying to say, you're trying to word something and it's not coming out properly in English. Because I'm sorry. I don't really understand most of what you're trying to say. Good book. Yes, it is a good book. Thank you. Conjuring the Planetary Intelligences by David Rankine. And Alchemic Mason said he's going to steal what you said. Astrology is the idea of working with what you got. So he likes that. He's going to steal it.
Awesome.
I think he's talking about a spiritual awakening. Got to lose your mind to find your soul. Oh, okay, all right. Well, North Star, if that's what you're talking about, still, I don't think people are losing their mind. Literally, I think that might be. I would look at that as more of an initiatic experience where the old you dies and the new you is reborn into this new world of knowledge, gnosis, experience. If you practice any sort of magic or anything like that, that's how I would interpret it. Not necessarily a losing of the mind. Um, so, have you ever heard of Ibn Sina or Sina? I've not. Have you heard of Ibn Sina, Sina? No, I
Mm-mm.
don't. No, I'm sorry. Plus, North Star, even though I do focus on Western esotericism, I do not study Islamic esotericism. I study Judaic and Judeo Christian. But for some reason, Islam just doesn't appeal to me. No offense to any Muslims or any Arabic people in the chat, but Islamic esotericism does not really interest me. So, other than the Pikatrix or the Agay Haim and Al-Arabi's on initiation, I've not studied any sort of Islamic uh, esotericism. So no, I'm not familiar with Ibn Sina. I'm sorry. Mm-mm. North Star might be inferring all Western occultism is a derivative of Islamic culture. Uh, okay, I would need to see some anthropological or archaeological evidence on that, since most of what we have in Western occultism comes from the region that Islam would come from. But I wouldn't say that Islam was the progenitor. I would probably say the Greeks and the Egyptians and the Babylonians before them were the progenitors here. Hey, Love Magic, we got another astrologer in here. Love Magic and Medicine is a Vedic and tropical astrologer. That's awesome.
Okay.
Welcome.
Wait, they Vedic tropical?
It says, hi, I'm a Vedic and tropical astrologer and occult herbalist.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Glad to have you. Pikatrix name drop. It's only a name drop if you know the Arabic. Al Gait Haim. Somebody correct me on my accent. I know it's terrible. I used to date a girl from Palestine, but that's neither here nor there. Oh, okay. Melissa says she got a tattoo for remediation for Mars and Gemini, where she has her stellium. Um, what's the stellium? Is that the nose ring or the belly ring? Is that what that is?
So
Or am
the
I tripping?
stellium in astrology is when you have
It's
there's
astrology.
different views of it, but there's like three or more planets in a sign.
I'm that's so embarrassed. I thought she was saying she got a tattoo on or like around her nose or something like that. I was like, what? Okay. Thank you for clearing that up, Lissy. Thank you so much. I'm sorry. I'm studying astrology, traditional astrology, with Austin Kapak. He's great. Are you familiar with Austin Kapak?
I
Kapak?
am familiar with Austin Coppock. He is wonderful. I would love to like actually study with him.
Well, there it is. So then I guess you're in good hands, Temple of Love. You're in good hands.
Most definitely.
Thank you for doing this today, guys. You're welcome. You're welcome, Tam I am. Thank you for being here. I appreciate your support. Oh, okay. So she wants to clarify love, magic, and medicine. She says to clarify, I practice both forms of astrology: Vedic, sidereal, and tropical Western.
Gotcha.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for clearing that up. If you have a power, send your spirit. I'm a squeeze lemon out of your spirit. North North Star. I'm sorry. I'm just going to assume English is not your first language, and that's okay. I just think that might be where the disconnect is here because I don't know what that means. You're going to squeeze my spirit like a lemon. I don't know what that means. Um, is that like slang for something? I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't know what that means. My husband has a 6 planet stellium in Sagittarius. Lord help us all. Uh-oh. Is that a bad thing?
So the thing about stelliums is that they are a concentration, an emphasis of that energy, right? Having so many planets in the one sign, like that sign is going to be emphasized for you and the house that it falls in. Having I would be curious as to what planets are involved because when I look for stelliums, I don't count Pluto, Neptune, Uranus, or any of the asteroids or other minor planets. I'm really only looking at the 7 classical planets. If one of them is a really closely aspected outer planet, it might count, but it's going to be stronger in a sense if it is the 7. Um, So sometimes people are like, I have a stellium and it's Neptune, Uranus, and Saturn.
Hmm.
Only kind of, because Neptune and Uranus are so far removed, they're just not really much reflective of the individual.
Okay. All right. Well, sorry that your husband has the 6 planet stellium, Wisconsin night Yoper. Youper. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. That's probably a Wisconsin thing, and I just don't know. So I'm sorry. He's the best teacher. He's opening up his year 1 class very soon. Well, awesome. That's awesome. And good luck to anybody who plans to take that class. I hope you get a lot out of it. If you want to, I can teach you. My name is North Star Vision. Well, the way that is written out perfectly, I understood that perfect. So, if you, I mean, I don't need to learn anything, but if you can just repeat everything you said before this time, um, in the same way you just wrote this out, that would be great because then I'd be able to understand you because that was perfect. That was perfect English or French. I speak French, so you can write it in French if you would like. Tropical Western is more conventional, and you can talk to just about anyone with it. Huh. Oh, it's more conversational. Sorry, I read that wrong. It's more
Hmm,
conversational, not conventional. More
I can see
conversational.
that.
Okay. All right. Do you have any questions on urine?
I just have a bunch of jokesters in my comments, so
Oh, I
that's
love the
why I like
quiz.
hanging out with these guys.
I have traveled many realms, but don't know where is my realm. Um, well, Earth. The third dimension would be your realm. I'm not sure what you. I don't know, North Star. You said your name and that you can teach me very well, but everything else, I don't know. I don't know. I have a stellium in the 8th house, ruled by Aquarius, Moon. Okay, how do I see stelliums? Because everyone's talking about stelliums now. Do I have any stelliums?
So it sounded like you have a Virgo stellium, potentially Capricorn. I don't remember what planets you had there, but I remember those coming up multiple
Okay,
times.
I'll just wait till I get a full reading from you to
Yeah, we
hash me
can talk
about
about
that.
it then for sure.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Yeah, I don't. Huh. You know what? I have a question. What if what if your birth time is wrong? You know how so when you come out of your mother, the nurse doesn't right away write down. They usually, let you hold it for a minute. Oh, so cute. Ha, what's the name? Smack it on the butt, all sorts of stuff. Get the footprint. 12 minutes later, now you're born, right? Now they put your name down on the thing. So what if this says 7:26 p.m.? What if I really came out at 7:05 and they just really just didn't write it down till 7:26? Then what? I mean, would all this just be jacked up and wrong?
So that's another one of my favorite topics actually is
Oh,
figuring out the correct usually on with my level of depth with it, it's figuring out the correct rising sign.
okay.
So if you have your rising sign at like a really early degree or a really late degree, I will look into that a little bit because just a few minutes can make a difference. If you were, if you're an early degree rising sign and you were actually born just 5 minutes earlier, you might have been the previous sign for your rising, and not only will that shift your rising sign, but using the house system that I do, it will shift all of your houses as well.
Wow.
So that's where you get, like, I'll go through and look at any planets in specific houses and see which area of life they actually show up more prominently in, especially
Hmm.
if it's like first house planets. Those are generally the easiest to work with. Um, but there are astrologers that do a service called birth chart rectification that is especially helpful when you don't know what your birth time is.
Okay.
And they'll actually use your chart, the rough estimate of your chart and your life events to kind of retroactively determine what your birth time was.
I wish I would have known that because I had to wait 6 weeks to get my birth certificate. Because I like I had to contact the state of New Jersey and be like they were like, oh well, you got to send in the fee and then we got to make sure it's you and you're not some Russian bot or something. I was like, guys, come on. So I wish I would have known that and then I wouldn't have to wait all this time. Sheesh.
I mean, it is usually a pretty spendy service, but it's that's
Oh,
one of the things that I want to study more in depth eventually and be more well versed on so I can offer that because it's really fascinating the different processes and techniques to use to figure that out. But I do essentially a like toned down mild version of that when I have the estimated time.
oh, okay, okay. It was autocorrect. That's making me because I'm using speaker to speak. Oh, okay, okay. Are you driving or something? Because that's what happens to me when I'm driving and I talk to text. It kind of sucks. I hate it. The swipe is way better when you're don't text and drive. Don't do it at all. But the swipe is better. But
Ooh,
anyway,
Elizabeth. So I have a friend here that's in the medical field. From a medical aspect, the doctor is required to record the minute your body is fully out as the birth time.
oh really? Okay, all right. Thank you for that. Thank you for the confirmation. Because I've always wondered that. Like, what if no one wrote it down and they're all just
Right.
just having a good time with the birth, and then they wait and then they write it down. So okay, all right. Thank you for that. So
And I think
726 is probably
there's
pretty
still a
accurate.
margin of error for that. Like not every time is correct.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
Sometimes are rounded, and not every birth certificate will actually have the time on there. It's not always
Yeah.
required.
Austin owns Sphere and Sundry, right? Uh, Austin owns Sphere. I don't know
I think maybe
who is
they're
who.
asking about Austin Coppock. I'm not sure.
Oh, okay. I don't know what Sphere and Sundry is. Is that like his like a company
That
or
sounds familiar.
sounds like a hippie bar? Sphere and Sundry in Austin. It sounds like it would be a place in Austin, Texas, where you go where the hippies are and they're drinking. That's actually what it sounds like. Let me see. Sphere and Sundry. It's a uh I guess I mean, it says Caitlin Kopic, so I guess he's involved as well. I would assume he's involved. So I'm just going to say yes, I
Yeah.
guess. I guess his wife or his daughter or his sister or something owns this Sphere and Sundry.
I think that's his wife.
They do picket trick style. Whoa! All right, now I'm interested.
Yeah, I was gonna say you might want to look into Austin Coppock because I think he has some teachings that are a little up your alley.
Okay, yeah. It says they have they're using the literal terminology. This is awesome. The series of Materia Magica produced on distinct ritual operations using talismanic grade astrological elections, Picatrix style procedures, and a mix of classical, modern, and syncretic correspondences. That's awesome. That's awesome. The only thing that would make this even more better is if he said, and by the way, we follow all the pentacles from the Key of Solomon. I'd be like, all right, sold. But
I know he does do some he's there's not a lot of astrologers in the like traditional astrology world that also will do like magic practices with their astrology. He's one of them that does
nice.
actually dabble in that. So,
Well, if you're a fan of Austin, or that's his name, right? Austin
yeah,
Coppock.
Austin Coppock.
You might want to check out the guy who owns Renaissance Astrology, Christopher Warnock, Chris Warnock. He is a uh, I think he does Hellenic. I think he does what you do, Hellenic astrology. But
Okay.
he's also a classically trained magician. I
Oh,
don't think he's a hermeticist though. Um, but yeah, he's a magician and a astrologer, and he also makes talismans according to the proper metals and times and all that other stuff. Um, what's your moon sign and your rising sign, if you don't mind me asking? My moon, what did you say my moon was?
your moon is Scorpio
My moon is Scorpio,
and
and
your
my
rising is
rising
Pisces.
Pisces. Yes, I'm rising Pisces, or Pisces rising. I don't know. Yeah, that's what it is. I practice Vedanta philosophy and practice hoodoo, but I want to learn more about the occult. Well, you are in the right place, but not necessarily the right stream. So follow me, and I go live often throughout the week. Feel free to pop in any one of my lives, and we can talk about it, or join my Discord and join the conversation on Discord, and I can talk about it there. Thank you for the rose. Mucho apreciado. Sag stellium is Sun first degree, Mercury third degree, Venus sixth degree, Uranus fourth degree, Neptune 25 degree. Oh, I don't know what that means.
So yeah, Uranus and Neptune are iffy there, but the first three are definitely that counts in the stellium for sure.
So Uranus and Neptune, those are the smaller planets, right? Like the asteroids that you were talking about earlier, or am
So
I did I mishear that?
so you have the seven classical planets. You have the Sun, the Moon, Mercury, Mars, Venus, Jupiter, and Saturn. Then you have the what in astrology we call the generational planets. That's Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. And then from there you have minor planets and asteroid.
Okay.
So like Chiron is technically actually a minor planet, I believe, as is Ceres and Eris, but they're kind of lumped in with the asteroids. But
Huh.
like each of the asteroids will have their own thing. They're just kind of extra little garnish for astrology.
Interesting. That's very interesting.
Yeah. But then the other three outer planets are kind of because they're so far away, it's like they have an outside view. They're peering in from a distance and they show up more in generations than in the individuals charts.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Rebel, I got to pop, but I love you, man. Tell Bliss I look forward to talking to her more, and we should have her on the live for the readings as a guest when we do practical hermetics. Oh yeah, listen, if you are interested in Greco-Egyptian philosophy, hermetics, or just how to connect astrology to that. Every Wednesday at 9 p.m., Alchemic Mason and I go live since we both are practicing hermeticists. And we read from the Corpus Hermeticum. And then we do a Q&A, kind of like we're doing right now afterwards. So if you want to,
Cool.
join in on that, please do join us Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. And we'll bring you up and we'll have a awesome discussion.
Sounds good.
But yeah, man, have a good night, Alchemic Mason, or day, or whatever, and I'll see you Wednesday, brother. And we'll probably be talking in the Discord because I got to send you this book too. So his wife is Sphere and Sundry, Caitlin. She's awesome, such a gem. But Austin does the election. Okay, so they're married. Okay, I thought it was either his wife or his daughter or his sister or something like that. Awesome. Mm-mm. She makes talismanic materia, and he does the elections. That's so cool. That's so cool. I wish I had the expertise to make my own, whether it's talismans or amulets or just regular materia magica. I buy on mine because I have no artistic talent when it comes to like drawing or painting or sculpting or wood burning or anything like that. Everything I own is purchased. I do still have my personally painted 12-foot Goetia circle, but every time I show it, everyone can see exactly why I don't do that anymore because the lines are not straight. It looks like a fourth grader did it. It looks like a child made that circle. So I prefer the professionally made stuff I get from Etsy. I just make sure that they're actual practitioners and not just some artists, and then I go from there. So Christopher Warnock. Yes. Yep. Christopher Warnock. His version of the Picatrix is phenomenal. I mean, there's a lot of good versions of the Picatrix, but his is great. He's very much into medieval astrology and magic, as one should be. As one should be. Is cosmic sorcery a thing? Um, what do you mean by cosmic? So sorcery is a thing, and then I guess if you want to include planetary energies, zodiacal energies, and call it cosmic, that could be a thing, and then you can mix it together and call it cosmic sorcery. But I would look at that as very chaosophic. So what would you consider cosmic, Demi, as Eros? What would you consider that? What would you consider cosmic? That's a great idea. I'd love to see you guys continue collaborating. I would too. Yeah, this was a great live stream, and I would love to do this again. Maybe even make it a regular thing if our schedules allow. So yeah, certainly.
Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent. Gang, gang. That's it. Yes. Yes, Melissa, gang, gang. The best magic is when people just use eyes. What do you mean? Just use our eyes to do what? To seduce people? What are you saying? Using okay, so yes, if you use planetary energy, I mean, I wouldn't consider that cosmic magic, but if you want to call it that, that's fine. But yeah, so if you just want to do magic and then just add the planetary energies to it, that's fine. But that's just usually called planetary magic. So good live, guys. Thank you. Hey, Louis, what's going on, brother? Louis, the Bliss Seeker. Give her a follow and get her on your podcast, bro. You got to get her on your podcast. She's great. Louis has a podcast that he has a bunch of esoteric, occult, mystical people on. You'd be great for the
Cool.
podcast. You should definitely hop on his show. But thank you, Louis, and thank you for being here, brother. Appreciate that, man. All right, guys. Do we have any other questions for the Bliss Seeker? Any other astrology questions? You're welcome, man. No problem, bro. I'm always trying to grow the community, man. We need authentic spiritual community here on TikTok. There's a bunch of nonsense running around here. So
Agreed.
yeah, it's if you've ever seen any of my live streams, it gets it gets a little. I tend to take warm dumps on certain groups, and it's not nice, but it needs to be done. Hey, how you doing? How you doing? How you doing? Galactic Federation Seal? Galactic Federation Seal? Welcome. Glad to have you. Check out some of my content, Galactic Federation, and I think you'll change your name. Let's see. You're right. The birth time is often inaccurately recorded. Yeah, I mean, I would assume so. Just as the Bliss Seeker was saying, there's usually some sort of leeway with that. What if you're born at 7:25 and but then it gets recorded at 7:26 because you were born at 7:25 and 55 seconds, right? And then so 4 seconds later it'd be 7:26, and they're like, oh well, it's 7:26. So, I mean, I don't know if the minute is that big of a deal. Is it, Bliss Seeker? Is it that big of a deal, the minute, or no?
It can be. In
Okay.
some circumstances, a minute or two can make a difference.
And
When
that's
you're
like
looking
we're
at
talking about, like if you're too early or too late in the. Okay.
Yep.
Scorpio moon's going to Scorpio moon. It's only natural, right? I mean, that's just the natural reaction. His book on the 36 decans is very interesting for magic. And this is Austin Coppock. He wrote the book on the 36 decans? Yes? Okay. All right,
Sounds like it.
I will check that out. Yeah, I'm gonna look into him because I'm not familiar. Yes. Okay. All right. Thank you. Yeah, I will look into Austin Coppock. I mean, I've got his wife's website right here. So, and Actually, you know what? Let me just take a look and see what they offer. Let me see what they're. What the heck is an Antares? Antares.
Taurus.
It's a semi malefic star, one of the four Persian royals. I don't know what any of that means.
I think it's one of the fixed stars.
Okay. One of the four Persian royals, last to take its rightful place among Sphere and Sundry stellar pantheon, following Regulus, Aldebaran, and Folmolhot. Interesting. Oh, wow. Oh yeah, this is interesting. This is really really cool. All right, yeah, I'm gonna definitely look into this a little deeper later tonight. They have everything. What kind of powders they have? Oh, he must use the Key of Solomon because this is the Marshall. This is the one of the Pentacles of Mars. I think that's the. Hold on. I think that's the. Let me see. He's using one of the Pentacles of Mars. Ooh, 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 ooh. 1 second. Sorry, guys. Sorry, guys. 1 second. 1 second. My mind is not going to let me forget this. Where the heck is Mars? All right, maybe I'm tripping. I can't find it. But that looks like one of the planetary pentacles of Mars. Interesting. Very interesting. Thanks again for this awesome discussion. I learned a lot. Hope you all have a good rest of your day. Well, thank you very much, The Real Close. Yeah, I think we're about to wind down as well. We've been going on for 2 hours here. It was an excellent live stream. The fixed star Antares. Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, I gotta study up on this stuff. I know nothing when it comes to astrology. My sun and moon are conjunct Aldebaran. Interesting. I don't know what that means. Is that good or bad or a thing? The
I don't know
secret?
much about that one.
Okay. All right.
It's not one
My
that I use.
ascendant ruler is conjunct Spica or Spica. I don't think it's Spica. That might be a little racist. But I think it's Spica. Please don't cancel me, TikTok. I was just reading the words. Mars is my chart ruler. Interesting. Nice, nice. What's the degree of your rising sun and moon sign? What's the degree? I don't know. Um, uh, I don't know. I don't know how to tell that.
So if you're looking at
I don't.
the list,
Mhm.
the number before the abbreviation for the sign, that's going to be the degree. You can also see it next to the planets in the circle chart.
Okay, so 13 for Virgo, maybe? Yes. I don't know. Here, let me just do it one more time so you guys can see, because I don't know. Um, Flip camera. Uh, I'm guessing that's the list you mean, right? This over here.
Yeah, so 13-degree Virgo sun, 16-degree Scorpio moon, 15-degree Pisces rising.
There you go. There you go. So go ahead and uh, judge me or whatever whatever it is. Give me. Go ahead. Who asked that question? Who was that asked that question? Love, magic, and medicine. So go ahead and give me your analysis. Go right now. Just kidding. But yeah, that's what it is. But all right, guys. So we have reached the 2 hour mark. So I think this would be a good place to end it here. Unless you have anything else you want to add on, Bliss Seeker.
I think we're at a good point.
All right. Well, I appreciate each and every one of you for being here. Awesome questions, awesome conversation. I appreciate your support. I appreciate you guys coming here to check out me and the Bliss Seeker. And everyone who stuck around for the entire 2 hours, thank you. It means a lot. I know a lot of you had to leave and go and do things with your day, but appreciate the ones who stuck around and hung out. Hopefully, we'll be able to get the Bliss Seeker back on here soon, and we'll be able to do a part two to this. So please go and give the Bliss Seeker a follow if you're interested in astrology. She's a font of knowledge. So please do go give her a follow. And do you have any last words, Bliss Seeker?
Thanks for having me. This has been great. I am definitely looking forward to chatting with you again. Yeah, you guys can follow me. I have a link in my bio to book a reading if you are interested. I have my reading rate super low right now. It's only $30 for an hour one-on-one with me to talk about your chart. So that's just so I can do as many readings as possible. So that's what I got. We have
Brian,
a we have a
Lady
cool
Brian.
community on my live. So if you want to come hang out when I'm live too, we like to hang out and chit chat about all this stuff.
Awesome. I'll be buying a reading this evening. And all right. Well, thank you for being here, Bliss Seeker. It was an honor and a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you for sharing your platform and your knowledge with us. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend. And we'll talk
Of
soon.
course. You too.
All right. Have a good one.
You too. Yes, guys, we'll have an after party.
All right. See you later.
See ya.
All right, everybody. Thank you all. Thank you, guys. It was an awesome, awesome 2 hours. Appreciate all of you. I have Mercury in. I don't know what that means. Sorry. Astrology is not my strong in any sense of the word. I know planetary magic, right? But I don't know astrology. And from the conversation that we were having early on during hour one, when I asked if there's any sort of correlation between the meanings of the planets in astrology and the meanings of the planets in Western ceremonial magic, and then I gave the meanings that we use in Western ceremonial magic, it seems that with astrology, it goes there's a lot more to the meanings. Whereas in Western ceremonial magic, you don't learn a lot of those meanings until after you initiate. So, yeah, I don't know what any of that means. I'm sorry. But appreciate you all being here. Thank you for spending your 2 hours on a Saturday with me. You could have been doing anything, but you chose